The last few times I've sat at this table about to assemble a monthly build for you guys, things have skewed a bit towards the expensive side. April's build was my Ryzen 7 1800X GTX 1080 Ti temporary replacement for my main editing rig. May's build was a $1,000 system with a whole bunch of glitz and flashing lights. And last month's build was a $2,200 gaming beast. This go around, I think it's about time we visited the other end of the spectrum. It's time to go low. $500 is the target for many consumers, and whether you're just getting into PC gaming or you've been at it for years, often the question of PC versus console is what drives decisions at this price point. As is the case with many console refresh cycles, when new systems are announced like the PS4 Pro, consoles do tend to pull slightly ahead when it comes to the included raw hardware. However, remember that your $500 gaming box is much more than a way for you to play the latest Crash Bandicoot title, and that upgradability is one of the main draws to building your own PC. For this build, we've managed to keep the price significantly under $500 and also put together a system that will fit the needs of many esports enthusiasts. Granted, we're not going to be mashing through titles like Ghost Recon Wildlands at 4K, but achieving good frame rates in most games at 1080p should be more than doable. When I did my Kaby Lake review back in February, I talked about how this chip, the dual-core hyper-threaded Pentium G4620, was a real contender for the title of best bang for the buck. It obsoletes many of Intel's own i3 chips, and as a result, Intel will be actually cutting production down in order to drive up prices and make the i3s more attractive to consumers. When this chip was released, you could find them for as little as $75, although now it will cost you $90, still well below the $110 i3 7100. The fact that the 4620 slots into the same motherboards as much more expensive and higher performing i5 and i7 CPUs means that you'll always have an upgrade path for the future. When I was looking for an LGA 1151 motherboard to pair with our Pentium, many of the H270 and B250 chipset products were unfortunately about double what I wanted to spend. The reason why I was targeting these second generation 1151 boards is because of out-of-the-box compatibility with Kaby Lake processors. Many consumers simply would not be able to flash a BIOS update to an older H110 or B150 board in order to make it work with our Kaby Lake chip. However, I came across the Gigabyte H110M M.2 motherboard while doing some research, and as it turns out, it ships with a Kaby Lake compatible BIOS already loaded. It happens to be micro ATX, meaning that we may have a little empty space in our case when we do the build, but that's a minor gripe for a $50 all-black motherboard with an M.2 slot. For memory, I specifically wanted one 8GB stick as opposed to two 4GB DIMMs in order to give us an easier upgrade path for the future. As our motherboard only sports two memory slots, populating both with 4GB modules would mean an upgrade would necessitate buying a whole new 2x8 kit. If we start off with one stick, we can simply add another one when the time is right. This is the Patriot Signature Line DDR4 2400. It's fairly basic but has a nice black heat spreader and will do the job just fine. For storage on our build, again we're staying relatively basic. Flash memory shortages over the past 6 months or so have driven up prices of both memory and SSDs, and large capacity drives still cost an arm and a leg. As I'm trying to move away from recommending spinning platter hard drives in my builds, we're going to go with this 240GB ADATA SP550. Now, ADATA has updated their SSD line, and this drive is no longer available from most major retailers, so down below you'll see a link to their SP600 drive instead, which is largely the same. Adding additional storage later on is probably the easiest thing you could do inside a computer case, and 240 gigs should be enough to install an OS, some basic software, and also a bunch of esports games, as they don't tend to be huge. So what's going to be driving the bus for our gaming needs? The MSI Aero RX 550 is a perfect entry-level card. It's Polaris-based, meaning that it includes features like Radeon Chill and Relive, and it's designed specifically with esports gaming in mind. When I did my review of this card, I was surprised at the totally decent frame rates I was getting from Overwatch and Rocket League. although it does get a bit overwhelmed with titles like The Division and Ashes of the Singularity. The biggest limiting factor here is the relatively small 2GB frame buffer, but you can grab variants of the 550 with 4GB configurations. Powering us up will be an 80+ bronze rated power supply from EVGA, the 450B. It's pretty basic and non-modular, but EVGA is one of the few brands I actually trust at this price point, and the bronze efficiency rating is really nice to see for $30. We're going to be building in the Corsair Spec 04 that I reviewed in that video up there. The Spec 04 comes in several color varieties, so if yellow isn't your thing, you could also grab it in gray or red trim. This yellow version right now is only $40 at the time of filming, and it's hard to beat Corsair quality at that price. I'm excited to put this all together and see how it performs, so let's get to work. Alright guys, pretty simple build. All finished. This was, like I said, pretty easy to put together. No complicated wiring jobs or any parts specifically designed just to make the system look prettier. So everything went in there really easily. Had a little problem with the cable management in the back. Not a whole lot of space there, but you know, I kind of think we knew that going in. For the most part, temperatures inside the system were actually really good. We had CPU temperatures maxing out at 54C with just the Intel stock cooler, and the GPU maxing out at 57C with the single fan design. It's not a huge power draw, but still, temps were really good. So as you guys saw by our benchmarking scores, the system struggles a little bit with really intense titles like The Division and Heaven, and for that reason, we didn't proceed with our full suite of benchmarks like Rise of the Tomb Raider, Ashes of the Singularity, Gears of War 4, things like that I would normally put a system like this through. Instead, what I did was actually play the games with this system that it was designed to play. So we threw esports titles into the mix like Dota 2, Rocket League, Overwatch, and CSGO, 4 of the most popular esports titles. And this system did exactly what it was designed to do. Each of those games we were able to play at 1080p at the highest settings above 60 frames per second. The lowest scores were in Dota 2, and even there, the lowest frame rates that I was seeing was like 57, 58 frames per second, whereas we were maxing out at around 80, 85 frames per second, which is more than enough. Now, I will say that a system like this isn't for everybody. If you have a budget in the $400 to $500 range, it's very possible that a system like this will be perfect for you and your needs moving forward. Although clearly not constructed initially with the highest end components, it's easily upgradable, it looks pretty good, and you can play any esports game you want. If you're in the market for, say, a mid-range gaming PC and you have a little bit more to spend, maybe $700 to $900, you can certainly start with this and make incremental improvements along the way. Maybe a better graphics card, upgrade the processor or the cooler. You could definitely do a lot with another couple $100 here. With that being said though, not everybody has that kind of cash, and this is a great starting point for a lot of people. Now, it might not be the prettiest system to look at. Inside, I did the best I could with the micro ATX motherboard and routing cables around, because in an ATX mid-tower, the cutouts are placed such so that they correspond with a full-size ATX motherboard. Of course, with a shrunken footprint for your motherboard, that means the cables are going to have to travel a little bit longer. You're going to get a little more cable mess inside. In no way will it impede any kind of airflow or cooling. It just happens to look not ideal. Still, I think, pretty good. So if you guys have $400 to $500 to spend on a system, how do you build it? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, don't forget, get subscribed to the channel because we are this close to 10,000 subscribers, where we'll be doing a full system international giveaway. As always, guys, thanks for watching.